Welcome to the podcast, and welcome to today's show. And don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget to like it. And we have a lot to cover today. And the topic for today's podcast is on the Trump's global tariff. We will take a look at what President Trump is doing regarding the tariff, the controversies, the risk, the consequences, and let us try to enlighten some people about what is going on. Because there's been a lot of propaganda and false information out there, and if you're not careful, you will be deceived. So, again, subscribe to this channel and share it to your loved ones. And also don't forget to like it. I will try to make it as short as possible. And again, we have a lot to cover. So, on April 2nd, a few days ago, one man, one American president, by his action, his singular action, triggered a global trade war using tariff. He said he wanted to tariff other countries in order to balance the scale of global trade. And the synopsis of it all is that the Trump tariff consists of a 10% tariff and a reciprocal tariff. So basically, 10% is the floor, and then every other thing will build on that, depending on the totality of each country's restriction to American companies in doing business in their own country. So that is the way it's going to work. Some countries will get just about the floor, some will get 25%, some will get higher, depending on their own trade practices. So, because of what Trump has done, he basically has taken a very dangerous and risky decision with his a global tariff. Very dangerous. He laid bare his political capital, everything. He put the GOP on the line, the Republican Party, his party, and basically he laid on the table his presidency and his legacy. Because if this action backfires, then he's done. He's done. But he put everything down. This is the action of a man who is convinced of what he is doing for the American people. He wants to take the risk. For the American people. And that is very instructive, because if you look at America, no American president since World War 2. That is from Harry Truman to date. Has dared to contemplate this, talk less of implementing it. So we are in an uncharted territory by this singular action. It's something that has never been done before at this scale by anyone. By anyone. So, if this great gamble succeeds, Trump arguably will immortalize himself as the greatest and the most consequential of all modern American presidents. Think about it. What he's doing right now is something unprecedented. No one has ever tried it. No one. So if he wins this trade war, it's game over. Game over. Game over. Because every president in America, and I'm saying from Truman downward today, they always know that America is being screwed all over the place, all over the world, by the Asians, by the Europeans, by the South Americans, by everywhere. They're screwing Americans on trade. But nobody dare to do anything about it because they know it's a risky decision. They know you're going to have a huge blowback, especially in this era of globalism. You're going to have a very huge blowback. So, this actually is the ultimate art of the deal. The ultimate art of the deal, but the dangerous one. So, I will attempt in this podcast to explain certain things relating to the tariff, so that some of us that has been confused by the media, by the globalists, as it were, or some of us that have been confused by ourselves, we can get a little clarity of what the situation is. Now, ask yourself some of these questions. How come before Trump came along, how is it that most Americans do not know the situation of the foreign trade of America in relation to other countries? How come? How come? How come they don't know that America is underwater or has been underwater in relation to foreign trade with other nations? All right. I'll tell you guys. I will explain why. First of all, American politicians are afraid to take action because they know of the potential blowback. So they rather keep it calm, finish their presidency, focus on other things, and move on. Secondly, have the media. The media has been schooled or instructed by the globalists to ignore the issue of trade, to ignore the issue of the imbalance in trade between America and the rest of the world. The WTO endorsed it, which is the World Trade Organization. They endorsed it. And the other reason is probably because Americans generally are well off. Americans have money. They're generous. And because of that, they either ignore the situation, especially when it is not highlighted and brought to the fore, and they just move on. This is in spite of the fact that America is in huge debt, almost 37 trillion in debt. So that's one of the reasons why the situation is what it is. America is also a huge economy, successful economy, rich economy, $29 trillion economy. And Americans consume about 20 trillion of the world's produce, goods and services, vice versa. So Trump came along and said, I want to do something about this. Even though he knew that it is too risky to do. He said, come on, I want to do it. But no American president has tried anything like this, and in this scale. None. There's one president that comes to mind that tried to do something, but not about global trade. Tried to confront very powerful political interest and lobby groups. That is President Roosevelt. Roosevelt confronted the robber barons. The robber barons in America were very, very powerful and successful at the time. They wield political influence and power. So no president dare touch them. But Roosevelt came, declared war on that monopoly, and at the end of the day, he won. He dismantled it. But that's within America, so it's a small scale, but also very significant. But Trump came in, took it to a whole new level. Whole new level. Something we've never seen before. Something we have never seen before. I hope you're getting the gist. So, what are the main issues? We will go through the main issues. So relax, take a cup of water, wine. If you do scotch, why not? Let's talk about the main issues. So he triggers this unprecedented tariff. And the reason he did it is because countries of the world, all over the world, other countries use tariff. Tariff, they use it to alter or to tilt the scale against the US. They also use what they call VAT. Nobody knows how they come about that name. So they use this VAT then, call it value added tax. So they use tariff, they use VAT, and they use a host of other regulations to make sure that American companies do not come into their own market. So they use this to regulate their economy and their foreign trade to keep Americans out of their market. So the question is, why does that matter? They can do anything. Of course, they could, just like Trump wants to do something. But the background is, tariff has been used by many countries for over 80 years, disproportionately against the United States. Take, for example, the steel industry, even aluminum, agriculture, automobile, pharmaceuticals. All these industries are being regulated by other countries. They try to keep Americans out of the equation. So on aggregate, global trade deficit for America is about 1.5 trillion every year. So China, Germany, Japan, South Korea, Canada, Mexico, the EU, Vietnam, India, Australia, the list goes on and on. So on aggregate, these countries charge America 10 to 20% tariff plus VAT. The VAT is normally 20 to 25%. And then you have the regulation that makes it impossible for American companies to come and do business in their own markets. So you're talking about 35 to 45% tariff, at least, on America and American companies by all these countries. China, for instance, charges America up to 67% in tariff. So, Canada does not allow American agricultural products to come in. So they use tariff, they use the same VAT, and they use quotas. For instance, they would say a certain quantity of a particular produce can only be allowed. Let's say 100,000 tons of grain may be allowed to come in. After that, nada, nothing else. And then they impose 20%, 25% VAT, then they impose also the tariff. So it is very, very rich for somebody to stay, without a lot of information. They say, oh, Trump is imposing tariff. America is trying to destroy global trade. Yeah, because the status quo has been that that America has been exploited, and each time you rise up to challenge it, you're likely to become the bad guy. I'll give you an example. Try to bring it home. So let's say you are a guy or a lady or a woman or a man who has always given to your community. You've given to your family. So let's say you help everybody out in your family, your extended family. You have a lot of relations, friends, so you help them out, The instant you stop, the instant you say enough is enough, or you pull back your resources, a lot of those people you've been helping will turn around and deny it and say, no, he doesn't. Maybe you got married. You're a single guy and then you got married. They'll say, oh, it's the new wife. Yeah, the new wife has stopped him from doing it. They forget everything he has done. So that's what's going on with America. That's what's going on with the foreign trade. These people have been hammering America with tariff and VAT and regulation. So much so that in Germany, for instance, In Japan, for instance, South Korea, American vehicles do not sell in those countries. You can drive all you want in Japan or in Hamburg. You hardly will see an American car. You're not going to see a GM. You're not going to see a Cardi. You're not going to do that because the tariff American auto manufacturers, and then they impose 20 to 25% VAT on top of it. And then they use other regulation. For instance, we don't like this tire. We don't like this kind of rubber. What is the make of this rubber? What are the components? All those kind of regulation makes it impossible for you to bring your goods in, your cars in to sell. And by the time you add all these things, it's about 50% tariff. And then it is impossible for you to bring your car in and sell it. Who's going to buy it? When they can get a cheaper Mercedes-Benz or BMW in their home countries. So another thing they do is they use the value-added tax, the VAT, to subsidize their local companies directly. So Germany takes the VAT, or Japan, and directly subsidize their auto manufacturers, thereby making the cost of the same Mercedes-Benz that we drive in the US cheaper in Germany, cheaper in Japan. So, if it is cheaper, why would anyone buy a Cadillac after you pay 50% tariff and VAT to bring it in? Nobody's going to pay that. So I was having a discussion with one of my friends that lives in the UK, and he was saying, well, because, American cars are big, the European roads are small, that's why they don't allow it. No, that's nonsense. It's either ignorant or malicious. Because if you come to America, you will see hundreds of thousands of small vehicles, smaller Cadillacs, Ford, GMs. You will see a lot of them in their hundreds of thousands. So those are similar to what you drive in Europe. So if you say, American cars are big, well, there are small ones. So that's not the issue. And besides, if you believe in free market, why would you turn the scale? Anyway, why don't you let market forces determine who buys the car? Or are you saying that people are stupid? They don't know that, if I buy a big car, I can fit it in a parking lot in the UK. Or I cannot drive on the road because it's big. No. So that argument does not hold any significant substance. But that is why you don't find American cars overseas. Regulation, tariff, and VAT. Is that clear? Do you understand? Do you now understand? If you're confused, do you understand? Do you understand? I hope you do. I hope you do. I hope you do. So, let's move forward. At the EU, China, and the rest of the world have been tariffing America. They tariff America for a long time, over 80 years, like I said. So now America has woken up in the name of one certain Donald John Trump. And all of a sudden, you are hearing retaliation. We are going to retaliate against America. The American president, he's out of his mind. We are going to retaliate. Well, what are you retaliating exactly for? You've been tariffing America for 80 years. And then all of a sudden, when America says, enough, let's reorder global trade. let's make the ground level for everyone to do business. All of a sudden, you want to tariff America as if America started it. That's crazy hypocrisy. That's hypocrisy. No, Europe, you started it. Japan, Asia, everybody, you started it. And now that America is trying to do something about it, you are saying that you're retaliating. I was listening to the Premier of Ontario, or Toronto, and he was saying something about that Canada is willing to drop all tariff to zero against American companies. So you guys have tariff all along. So he said they are willing to drop it to zero for American companies. Mr. Premier, that's not enough. That's not enough. Not enough. Because the issue is not just the tariff that you charge. It is the VAT. It is the regulations. So we don't want no regulation. We don't want those VATs. Take them away. All of them gone. We don't want any of them. Because even if you lower your tariff to zero, the VAT is there. It's 25%. And the regulations are there. So American companies can still not send their agricultural produce to Canada. They cannot. So that's the issue. So this is an issue of, or this war, so to speak, is an issue of who blinks first. Who blinks first? America has a lot of leverage. Trump knows that. Since his inauguration, he has single-handedly, his administration or whatever, secured about $5 trillion of pledge in foreign direct investments. The Gulf nations, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Dubai, UAE, have pledged about $1 trillion in infrastructure development in America. Apple announced $500 billion investment in America within these 4 years, a few weeks ago. Then you have OpenAI, you have Oracle, you have SoftBank, all pledging $500 billion to develop AI infrastructure across the United States. Then you have Hyundai, Honda, and a host of other companies, including tech companies. Pledging to invest in America. So America is going to experience a tremendous opportunity for economic activity and trade, because the whole goal is to make things in America, bring the supply chain home. That's the matter. That is the matter. So when Trump came into power, he had two choices. Ignore the generational problem of trade and tariff and pretend it didn't exist like any other president, or fix it. He chose to fix it. The question is, will it be easy? The answer is no. Of course, it will not be easy. Will there be short-term pain for doing this? Of course, there will be short-term pain. Your 401k will go down temporarily. The stock market will be all over the place. Today, it was up. Tomorrow, it went down. So, stock traders are not going to be happy. So those are the temporary pain that you have to endure for the greater good. Is there a recession? Absolutely not. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise or lie to you and make you fear so you can start selling off your stocks and crash the market. If Trump succeeds with this reordering of global trade, from what we now know, will America be better off a year and a half from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now? The answer is absolutely yes. America will be better off. So stop whining about it. I'm sure you understand right now. You that is watching me, you now understand what is at stake. I'm sure you do, right? So, what is Trump saying? What is President Trump trying to say with his unprecedented tariff? One, he wants to level the playing ground, the playing field with the rest of the world on trade. He wants countries to come and negotiate their own trade practices with America. That's what he wants to accomplish. He wants to bring back manufacturing to America. Why is that important? Because if you bring back manufacturing, good, high-paying factory jobs will come back home. You'll create those jobs that are very high-paying here at home. And this will bridge the inequality, and the income gap will significantly reduce. Instead of having service jobs that are low-paying all over America. So for those who are always saying, oh, let the rich pay their share, oh, let companies be taxed more and all that, the issue is not taxing the companies more. The issue is making those things here so that you create high-paying jobs. What is Trump trying to say? He is saying, if you're going to do business in the United States, he wants you to build your factories here. He wants you to alter your trade policy so that if you build your company here, you will employ Americans. If you employ Americans, what will that lead to? In the long run, you will have lower interest rates, increased high-paying factory jobs or jobs generally, increased domestic production, and increased gross domestic product. Your GDP will increase as a result. And then your economy will boom. There is no reason why America's GDP should not be growing at 3 to 4% every quarter, every year. because we are the world's biggest economy. Our buying power is second to none. So, the fifth thing he wants to do, he wants to lower taxes for all Americans, for all companies, for the middle class. He wants to give American companies the chance to produce in America. And once you come in to make your products in America, he wants to charge only 15% tax, corporate tax. He also wants to make his 2017 21% corporate tax permanent. So for all businesses, big or small, barbershop, whatever you are, your tax rate will be 21% permanent. That's what he made it before. It is supposed to expire this period. So he wants to make it permanent. But for those who come in, new companies, to make their products here, as an incentive, he wants to charge them 15% tax. So where is he going to get all the money to do all these things? So he wants to fund all these massive tax cuts using tariff revenue that he will generate from this tariff. Remember, no tax on Social Security, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime. Payroll taxes as a result for employers will also come down. The money from these tariffs will pay for all that. The estimate is $600 to $700 billion a year in tariff revenue. Over a 10-year period, it will also be used to pay down the national debt. So that's the plan. So you that is watching this podcast, do you now understand what this tariff is about? I hope you do. I hope you do. One other important issue regarding this tariff, is who will pay for it? Who will be paying for it? And a very good question. And as a hypothesis, the alternative hypothesis, I would say, compared to the other countries that have been charging and tariffing America all these decades, who was paying for those tariffs that they charge America and other countries that come into their country to do business? Who was paying for it in their own home country? All right, so we will attempt to talk about it. First, there is what we call elasticities of demand. Price elasticity of demand. It is the ability of consumers to respond to price changes. Products with higher elasticity see increased response from consumers when prices change or when their prices change. And this is important because it helps determine prices or price set points for small businesses. There is also what we call the inflexible person in economics or in economic policy. The inflexible person. So when we talk about tariff, the inflexible person now is the other country or the selling company or the exporting company. That's the inflexible person. So because he's inflexible, he he cannot behave like the consumer of goods and services. Meaning, the elasticity of demand, the way it affects the consumer, does not affect the guy that sells the products, because the consumer can hop from one product to the other. So what does the seller do? He will lower prices to make sale, or else he will be left with obsolete products or damaged goods. That's the way it works. Again, the market will also adjust itself. The market will adjust because companies will be moving into America, because that's the overall strategy of the tariff, to make companies come into America and pay only 15% tariff to make those products here in America and employ Americans. And like I said before, it will increase jobs, increase productivity, increase GDP. And increase the buying power of Americans and choices. And then also you have new markets will open up as a result. New markets will open up, both domestically and from overseas. So buy large quantity of externalities will come into play. So by and large, the inflexible person, and in this case, the exporting country or company, will eat between 70 to 80% of the cost of this tariff. So that's the way it will work. So that inflexible person, they don't want you to know, is the one that will eat 70 to 80% of the cost of this tariff. In other words, the effect will not be profound, and America will be better off. Do you now understand? Do you now understand? So leave me your comment on the comment section, and I will come back with more episode regarding the trade situation. And we hear that over 70 countries have contacted the White House, and they want to talk business, they want to negotiate. That is the art of the deal. Don't forget to subscribe, don't forget to share, and don't forget to like it. I'll see you sometime. Bye.